Oh, derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. All right, well, sorry, I'm a little late and I feel like slightly disorganized. Plus says, good morning, that is a new name. How are you? Hi. Win says, when are you? Good morning. Are you aware that we hear you as you enter the room? Yeah, so that was going to be my first comment, was that one of the things on my checklist, and my checklist is right here, and it's fallen off of the monitor, so maybe I need to rewrite it with a better sticky note. But one of the things on there is to mute the microphone before I walk off to go and eat. And I keep forgetting to do that. And I've done that now the past 2 or 3 days. Anyways, I've been thinking about a bunch of different, a bunch of stuff. So I'm probably, being absent-minded and missing things, So I'm just thinking right here, what happened with this other thing that was going on? What is this? Where are we? Where? Oh my god. Yeah. Okay, so anyways. Good morning, Les. The new name, what are you talking about there? Oh, plus. Plus. Here in Discord, that's a new person, I think. Well, maybe not, because they already got the permissions. Anyways. Sorry about that. I wanted to check on something and I did it. We should go to the charts. Yeah, anybody that's watching this on replay is like, what the hell are you doing, Seth? No. Let's go to the charts, and then I'll tell you why I'm like so distracted. Okay, so you can see here, the E-mini made a pretty good recovery overnight. I would say that was actually quite significant. I'm not quite sure what it was that happened there that made that happen, but whatever. And of course, the Treasuries are moving down. We still got like some. Well, they don't have any like naked point of controls below us, but there's all this stuff down here. Yeah, we'd have to go. If we start selling again, I mean, good grief, it's far down there if they ever decide to do it. But we'll see. Maybe a checklist would help you remember the stuff. No, I have. This is my checklist. This is my checklist. You see? You see right there? Before, mute microphone. And I just forget. Yeah, and it fell off my monitor. So I forgot to go through it. So I didn't even go through the checklist. I did all the other things. I checked the webcam. I started the Epic Pen thing and the countdown clock. I just didn't. Anyways. I'm remembering all of the important stuff to share with us later. Well, I kind of just wing it, but so let me tell you about something that's going on here right now. I don't see anything. I do see that there was a short there, but that was probably before we came in, wasn't it? Yeah. So, and here is Wednesday. I guess I should share with you the context of the day here on Wednesday. Remember that Wednesday tends to be a more active day, but we don't really have any it's super important news until 8 o'clock. We have existing home sales, and then the FOMC meeting minutes. The meeting minutes can kind of hold the day back. Mm-hmm. I linked a source that has ideas for you on yesterday's video. Oh, okay. You mean yesterday's video? I didn't get any notifications. Let me double check here. Dun, 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 dun. Sometimes. No, I don't think I did. No, I have to do it like this. Oh, yes, I do see it. I'll go and look at that later. Okay, so anyway, so here's one thing that is really distracting to me. Okay. I'm super concerned about the things that are happening in Hong Kong. Okay, my father, because we're Mormons, so he served a LDS mission in Hong Kong. That's why when he was there for 2 years. Yemen, U.S. drone shot down. I don't see that one. Anyways, I'm really concerned about the things that are happening in Hong Kong. And my father, he lived there for 2 years doing, religious proselyting. So as a kid, I've always known a lot about Hong Kong. And I remember when they got handed over to the Chinese, and I was super concerned about it. And everything that I see over there in Hong Kong these days confirms to me those exact same things. And it appears to me that these people are being oppressed, and that they're going to kill people, and all of the other awful things that communists do, right? So I have this friend that I know, and she is Chinese, and she all of a sudden in the past week has started posting a bunch of stuff on Facebook. She does not normally post on Facebook, okay? I'm just saying, she doesn't normally post on Facebook. She's never used it. And all of a sudden, she's posting all of this anti-Hong Kong stuff. And so I go in there and I reply to her, we're talking about communists. There was, it was kind of relevant to the thing that she was saying, but it was a lot of the stuff that she was saying was just kind of seemed like out of nowhere. Was like tons of word salad. I'm just like, this is really bizarre, and it doesn't even make sense. And she's not writing English as well as I know that she knows English. So this is kind of weird. So I go in there and I write this thing about communism, right? Like, you guys realize China is still controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, okay? They're still communists. The economy in China, they call it socialism adapted to the Chinese, is what they call it. Which is to mean that real communism obviously doesn't work in their current circumstances. And so what they need to do is they need to build up the Chinese economy first. And then once they've built up the Chinese economy, then they can become true communists. And they call this state that they're in the primitive version of socialism. And so basically the gist of the Chinese policy, and the government pretty much is openly saying this, but this is of course my own twist on it, but those are the words that they use. But what is it really? Take advantage of the Westerners so that we can get more money and power, and then once we have enough money and power that nobody can really mess with us, then we'll become communists again and lock down on everything. That's what it is. Right? So I post that, and I just get she completely doesn't even respond to it, frankly. She's like, oh, communism is just a word. I'm like, fucking what? They are communists. This is what they believe. That's not just a word. It's super important, into knowing what they're going to do. Okay? And so I straight up asked her, how do you know who I am? Do you know how you know me? And she ignored the question. It is not her. Her account has been taken over by a Chinese troll, and it is not her posting. It is not. That is not her. She doesn't talk that way. She doesn't have as awful of English. And she wouldn't just ignore a direct thing like that. She would say, this is how I know you. And I'm not going to say how she knows me. But she would say, this is how I know you. It's not her. Super fucking sorry. That was not a technical term. That was just me. I'm really upset about it. It's not her. And it is very disturbing to me. And I don't know if her account has just been hacked, or if she's been disappeared. I don't know. I don't know. It's crazy. This is just crazy to me. Yeah, Win says it's not your friend. Yeah, it's not her friend. Bots and trolls look for unused accounts that they launch political attacks. It is certainly probably not her. Some accounts on Reddit and Facebook are not really on. I mean, like this, but it's, there's the whole thing about the 50 Cent Army. I don't even think it's the 50 Cent Army. I guess maybe it is, but they've taken over her account. Straight up. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna go and ask the Chinese, some Chinese friends about it and see what they think now, because that's weird. Anyways, so here's another thing that's going on that so there's this person. This is gonna be like kind of dumb. So if you tune out, it's totally cool. There's not a ton of people watching right now, anyways. But oh, by the way, we did get a signal. I should pay attention. But it's within the zipper, so I don't know what that means. It might mean higher, but my friends and family who support this administration and share memes and bot accounts are consistently hacked despite my best efforts at cybersecurity. Really? That's interesting. This is the first time that I've ever seen a person that I know where it seems like their account has been taken over. I mean, I do get like the Facebook, what is it? The viruses that go through Facebook. I've gotten messages like that, but I think everybody gets that, and those aren't necessarily a big deal. Anyways, so what was the other thing? The other thing that's going on is that there was this post on Reddit, and if I see something on Reddit that's inaccurate, I'm just gonna comment on it. Like, that's just the way that I am. And if somebody is going to reply and argue with me about it, I will continue to reply until they're done, and until the thing is resolved. Because to me, it's like there's a very clear what is true and what is not, and if you just keep going and going, what is true just becomes obvious, and all they can do is stumble over trying to make something that isn't true, seem plausible. Do you think Bitcoin can collapse anytime so fast we can't even put a sell order in? I mean, I still do. How are they going? Where? Oh, wow. Wait. That was... So yesterday I said there was a Head and Shoulders. There was a Head and Shoulders. Well, I'm glad you said something, Jay Constant. So here's the thing. It's possible that there could be a complete collapse in Bitcoin. It comes out like Tether has been proven to be fraudulent and shuttered, and then exchanges start closing, and the price will get destroyed and you won't be able to sell. That's absolutely a big risk. I'm surprised that this fell the way that it did. I have to check that out a little bit later. But I want to go into this thing. So this rant, this is not going to necessarily be the most popular rant, but I know that I'm on something where there's going to be a lot of people that at least on Reddit, there's a lot of people that seem to want to fight me on this, but the truth is the effing truth. Not going on with Tether. Yeah. Oh, there's wrong. Where is Uzi? He must be on vacation this week. Did he tell us he was on vacation? I think he did. I'm kind of vaguely can't remember though anymore. Let's just check up here. Did my crypto sources? Does anybody have a reason for why it has moved the way that it has? Well, okay, this guy is not awake yet. Did you buy garlic coin in Coinbase? No. I don't think you can. I think the only place that you can trade garlic coin for Bitcoin is on Trade Satoshi. and it is literally like a point zero zero, like 0.00015 of Bitcoin. So it's like 10,000 garlic coins is only worth $20. And to mine 10,000 garlic coins, you're literally talking about a regular person mining for over a year to do it. Right? Because I leave the machine on and I will mine. And I still mine the garlic coin. I kind of feel obligated at this point because it's like, we got to keep the hash rate up, guys, right? So obviously I'm investing in a failed investment, but man, so I've been doing it and I have a lot, but it is not worth squat. It's hilarious. Now, the funny thing is that anytime there's any activity in garlic coin on Trade Satoshi, it like doubles. Like it was worth, it's like 0.00015. But the other day somebody bought, and for that day it was 0.003. So then it was worth, like $40-$50. And if it ever became popular, like if people actually picked it up, started developing stuff on it, pushed it out, it became meme popular again, and it was as big on Reddit as it was when it was originally created, it would be worth a heck of a lot more. So I still say that if you really, really want to go all in on a really crappy shit coin, it's, that's where I would go. B Rapid's going back up. The market appears positive based on the president's remarks about tax cuts, but he has pulled back on it now. I need to go and watch that press conference because there was a bunch of weird stuff that came out of that, right? Because he's saying, you think it's going to 20K? I don't think so. Here's the thing, is that they stopped printing the tether. Why? I don't know. But something happened over there. The fact that they stopped printing the tether should be concerning. And you will notice that since they stopped, price has gone nowhere. And what is going to happen? Well, since all of this buying was basically artificial, then everybody that got suckered into buying it because of that artificial demand is going to be trapped, right? They're just going to start going down. You're below 10K. I mean, it would need to get below 10K. But if they can really push a little bit further, then people are going to start getting squeezed. And all of those guys are just gonna go out, and then at that point, then things are gonna start falling apart. It might not happen yet, though. I still think that probably the thing that you're going to need to see for the market to really fall apart is for Tether to be exposed as a fraud. That New York Attorney General shuts them down, basically. Italy is disrupting the EU. Yes, that's another. I don't know if the market cares about that, but it is an important thing to keep an eye on. So you can buy in Satoshi and keep the coin in Coinbase wallet? No. So you can go and buy it. Well, okay. So you could buy. What you can do is you could go to what you would have to do if you wanted to buy garlic coin is you would have to go to Coinbase and buy some Bitcoin, and then you would transfer your Bitcoin to Trade Satoshi, and then from Trade Satoshi, you could trade Bitcoin for garlic coin. That's how you could get into it. And then, to go out, you would have to go the other way. So that's kind of one of those risks right there with any altcoin, really, is that to convert it into dollars, you might have to make a transaction. JP Morgan is shutting down their Chase Pay app. That's kind of weird, but I don't think it was particularly popular. Anyways, so this is like a problem with all of the altcoins, is that you have to be able to transfer it back to the exchange and sell it quickly enough And with Bitcoin itself, the the blockchain is so cluttered that it can be days before your transaction would get processed. So of course, then everybody uses like Bitcoin Cash. Like when the last run, when I made my money and I got out, I would trade it into Bitcoin Cash, and and then transfer it back to Coinbase, and then I would trade from Bitcoin Cash into dollars, and then take it off. Where you keep them in Coinbase. Well, so if you bought the garlic coins, then they would be in your Trade Satoshi wallet. And then if you really wanted to keep them for a long time, you would want to transfer them to your own wallet or like cold storage. So like my garlic coins, I mine to a cold storage wallet, which means I have the address and I tell it to mine it to that particular address, but all of the keys and everything are like in a safety deposit box. Bitcoin pumping in 3, 2, 1 if you say so. There's no way I'm touching it, especially not after a confirmed and head and shoulders pattern goes through. Whoa, good grief, that is super crazy. What is Bond and Rand? No, don't know. I've never heard that. Huh. Wrong says I understand now. Yeah. That's where it is, and that's where cryptocurrencies are right now. And I honestly do not believe that Bitcoin will be able to make new highs without fixing their technology, which is that they're going to have to make the block size bigger. Otherwise, there's not enough activity to maintain price, because it basically works like this. There's miners, there's people that actually use the currency for everyday transactions, and that provides a base floor of activity, right? This base floor of activity will hold price to a certain level. That is like the 50 mark on my indicator, maybe lower than that, but it's down there, right? And then everything else on top of that, right, is speculation. So there's speculation, and then there's fraud, which is the tether right now, assuming that theory is true. But it's appearing more and more clear that it is true. All right. So then, right, you get rid of the fraud, the base transactions and the speculation are not enough to take it to 20K. Not. Because you look at the amount of money that's being transacted through the chain right now, it's not enough. Please hit like. Seth will not ask, so I do. Thanks. Well, Bitcoin was a few cents and nobody believes one day hit 20K, overpass other markets in terms of price and valuation. Yeah, but the reason that it was able to ever hit the prices that it did, remember, was that first of all, they got a big exchange and there was people actually using it, but then there was also fraud pushing price up and enticing people to come in and buy it. And then what happened when that fraud disappeared? We're talking about the Mt. Gox crash, right? That fraud was exposed. All of that money came out of the market, and Bitcoin lost almost all of its value. And if Tether is a fraud, the same thing is going to happen, because they're doing the same thing. I wanted to buy Bitcoin when it was like $100. Would could have. I still want to buy it, but the problem that I'm having right now. 17. Still going. The problem that I'm having right now is like, okay, how long is it going to take? If they're still not falling apart right now, that means that Bitcoin might not be bottoming until next year. Like it might not be until April, May of next year, for instance, before we see it. And I have some money saved up to try and buy it, but now I'm sitting here thinking maybe I should just put that money into the futures because I don't think that I'm going to be using it. So I don't, it's going to take forever. It might be years before Bitcoin is in a spot where it says that I can buy it. Mm-hmm. Buy 10K in Bitcoin. Good grief. Industrial demand silver. I was studying that as an investment and everyone poo-pooed me. Well, so I think that silver right now actually wouldn't be a bad idea. I'd have to go and look at the chart. I haven't looked at the chart, but I remember back in the quantitative easing days, gold was very popular. And so silver became a thing too. And they moved up to 50. And that was the biggest. Oh my gosh. Everybody was talking about silver. And it was like in one day you'd go with one contract and you could make $5,000 or something like that. It was ridiculous the amount that silver was moving. And it went right up and it touched 50 and then it completely collapsed. So if gold is going well, then I would expect that silver probably continues to go well too. And especially if we have a downturn and central banks really start pumping out the money, then silver's probably is going to go up. And the advantage to silver over gold is that it's like more speculative. If it was fraud, how Bitcoin make their way to the futures? Well, so for starters, if the market had known that that Tether was that big of a portion of the order flow price, and they knew that Tether wasn't backed, then they probably wouldn't have gotten approved for it. Just like they continue to have trouble approving the ETF. Now, of course, they got the backed futures, but like nobody cares about those. Who cares? Why would I trade those when I can trade CME Bitcoin futures? Not important. It sure seems like a lot of people want to try and use it as a reason to buy it, though. They're actually making a new low there in Bitcoin. 99.15. They get below this, 98. They would really have to be hitting 95 before it would really be like people would really start to panic, right? Until then, there's probably a ton of people trying to catch the knife, as it were. Anyways, so here's this other thing that's going on with me. Is, like I said, when I'm on Reddit, I see something that's not true. I'm going to argue with people. So one of the things that's going on is there's this news story. I think it's in, it's somewhere in New England. I want to say Boston, but I do think it is maybe in Massachusetts. And there's this person. What is her name? Dye. That's right, Sarah Dye. And she does not seem to me to be an incredibly bright person. So I want to put that out to begin with here. It doesn't seem like this is a person that's incredibly bright. Has probably said and done some things in the heat of the moment that she regretted. And, is attaching herself to groups of people that you're probably not too smart to attach yourself to. But, she's there. And her deal is she owns like a window at a farmer's market. And she sells stuff at this farmer's market. Well, she was exposed as having participated in a chat room with like Identity Europa people. which, as much as I tried to find information about them online, it's like incredibly difficult to find anything about what they actually believe or what they actually are. Okay. But there was conversations in that their private Discord that were, racist and things like that. And since she was tangentially related to them, everybody is now saying that she's a white supremacist. So then she comes out and she says, well, no, I'm not a white supremacist. And I'm not. She considers herself an identitarian. So what is an identitarian? Well, that's kind of one of those things because we're not talking about a specific group. It's kind of hard to nail down what exactly it means, but generally speaking, they would say that they are people that are concerned about Western culture being under attack, if that makes sense, right? So they say, that they're basically trying to get rid of Western culture. Yeah, you're correct, and they spell it with a V. and they were the ones that I think came up or popularized that blood and soil term, which is basically a Nazi thing. Like I said, we're not talking about good people here per se, right? Like, it seems to me like Identity Europa is like a front where they're not white nationalists or white supremacists. They are identitarians, but probably the people leading it, and a very large portion of the people that are involved in it, are white supremacists, and that they're using it to try and entice people into it and, make more white supremacists. Okay, did something just happen there? That might have been something market moving right there. 652, Donald Trump. Doing great with China and other trade deals. Only problem we have is Jay Powell and the Fed. He is a golfer who can't putt, has no touch, big... Oh, man. What? He's like a golfer who can't putt, no touch, big U.S. growth. If he does the right thing, big cut, but don't count on him. So far, he has called it wrong and only let us down. We are competing with many countries and have a far lower interest rate, and we should be lower than them yesterday. Highest dollar in U.S. history, no inflation. Wake up, Federal Reserve. Such growth potential almost like never before. I don't know if that's actually going to move the market. There was probably some Twitter accounts taking trades off of that, but I don't know. I probably would just ignore that. The Couch Warriors are all over YouTube. Know how I find them? And clear my history. You have to clear your history and check your browser after missing. Okay, so anyways, this, I have to make sure I'm make it clear that I would not recommend getting involved with these people. I don't completely know what they believe, but they don't seem too bright to me. Okay, but they're calling her a white supremacist, and she says she's not a white supremacist. And so I say, hey, if you're going to call somebody a white supremacist, you have to prove that they're a white supremacist. All right? You do. I'm just saying, because here's the thing. There's this article out where they were basically saying, well, there's a lot of offers on that, where they were basically saying that that's terrorism and that she should be treated as a terrorist. So they want to kick her out of the farmers market and, do police action against her and all of these sorts of things. But guess what? The farmers market is set up by the city. There is equal protection under the law, so they can't do anything to her until she's broken a law. And frankly, even if she did actually believe the things that people claim that she does, they wouldn't be able to do anything, right? But she says that she's not a white supremacist. And I say that if you're going to run around and try and ruin somebody's life and harass her like they're doing, because it's like they go and they protest her at the farmer's market, you have to prove that she actually is a white supremacist. And whereas she said that she thinks that white people are superior or anything of that nature, she never has. And she says she's an identitarian, and so some people are saying, well, she says she's an identitarian, and that's a white supremacist. Well, it's not. Because identitarians don't believe that white people are superior, and they don't believe, they're not white nationalists either. They don't believe that there should be a white ethno-state. They just think that culture, that Western culture should be preserved and you be proud about it or whatever. So like I said, it does kind of seem like it's a front, but if somebody goes out and says, I'm an identitarian, this doesn't mean that they're a white nationalist. So, shouldn't harass them. But this particular individual, but a bunch of people on Reddit don't see it that way. They do not see it that way. And that's where I have big problems with the far left these days. It's like, I'll go on the Donald subreddit and tell you what, there's some dumb people over there. All right. Like one of the things that I see them talk about all the time is that they'll say like, well, they'll say that they're white nationalists. And they're just like, okay, no, because Donald Trump specifically condemned white nationalism. So I would hope that you're not part of a movement that the president, has specifically condemned. And that would be against that subreddit's rules. And then they say, no, it just means I'm a nationalist and I'm also white. And it's like, no, that's not what it means, okay? It's a term that's been in use since like the 50s or 60s to describe people that want to make an ethno-state. It's wrong, it's unconstitutional. It's an evil thing. I mean, not that ethno-states are inherently evil, but trying to create an ethno-state where it doesn't exist is absolutely evil, okay? Japan is an ethno-state. I don't think there's anything evil about Japan. Okay, but it already existed. But trying to make one where it doesn't exist, that is the only way that you do that is with genocide, taking away people's rights. It's not okay, right? But they still insist, well, you're just using the left's. No, it's not somebody trying to change language or anything like that. It's always meant that. And when you say that you're that, you just sound stupid. But they'll argue with me about it all the time. Okay, so there's dumb people over there. But you know what? They're just kind of dumb. They say dumb things, whatever. Okay, but then I go over and I look at the left, and what do I see from the dumb people on the left? Oh, this person who is just apparently just some insignificant regular lady is a terrorist, and we need to do something about her. Right? It's insane. Like, you put these people in charge, nobody is safe. Because they can basically say, you believe this, and it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what you say. And then so I was getting into this conversation with person, and this is kind of like the last little bit of it, but I went on with this guy almost all day. And, eventually he said, I said, you have to prove that they believe that thing, which means you would have to find like a statement from them saying that they believe that thing, or, actions that show that they believe that thing, which in this case would be really hard. Right. And he says, well, that's like a really high burden of proof. And I'm like, yeah. To ruin somebody's life, there's a high burden of proof. You can't just run around and call people terrorists without proving that they believe what you say. It's just crazy. Some of the things that I see these days, the mob is out there. Be afraid. Wow, Ace already got some from going long? Wow. It does look mighty enticing. So there's an iceberg there at 14.5. I think we should keep an eye on that. I think I'm glad that I didn't try taking any trades, because really we would have only been able to get 3 out of any of them. We might bust down through the bottom here. Let's see. It's going to be, so it's a 10K. It's a 10K at 14.5. Algo lovers. What did algo lovers say about yes? If they maintain their bid above 28.8850, then 29.48. Well, they're pretty unlikely to go below that. I don't know. The problem that I have, algo lover, is that most of your targets are always too far away from me to do anything actionable about. If I was going to swing for multiple days, then I could maybe try messing around with some of them. Whatever. We all okay? I'm getting some of my data here from YouTube isn't coming through quite correctly into the chat. Yeah, it says that we got 15 of you, so I think we're okay. Covers trade, walks away. You're already walking away. That's funny. He took it at 23. Oh, 23. So he only took the 1 point though, huh? Why not 2? Why are you waiting for 25? What is CBOE? So there is the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, which is the CME. And the CME is composed of multiple exchanges, I guess, they used to exist. And one of them is the CBOE, or the Chicago Board of Exchange. So so when you're getting data, you can either get all CME data, or you can just get CBOE data. And if you just get the CBOE data, that would give you the data that you would need to be able to see the Treasury futures, right? So if I have CBOE, then I can see ZN, but I wouldn't be able to see ES. So that's why I get all CME data. It's like $15 versus like $5 or something like that. I think that's what you're asking. That's what you're talking about. Unless maybe it's in some other strange context. Where did we say anything about CBOE? CFE home. Not sure what that means. I was reading a page C star BOE. CFE home. I don't know. I guess I don't know what you're talking about. 14.5. So it's interesting to me that even though we got a signal there, well, not a signal, sorry, even though we got an iceberg there, that we didn't get a signal, rather. A lot sold there, and it's just kind of sitting here. Well, there's your 29.25. By the way, there was another comment I had kind of missed, but Jay Constance saying that it looked like Bitcoin was bouncing, and doesn't look like it to me. So here's the thing. Until I get a bar that closes above the previous bar, or like 2 bars like that, probably too early to call it a reversal. Probably too early. It's interesting that it's moving so much this morning, though. Let's go and check and see if maybe the Bitcoin subreddits can tell us something. What are they saying about it? Some talk about the Bitcoin.com exchange. Tether responds to New York Supreme Court ruling against Ifinix. Bitfinex deposited 850 million of corporate and client funds in a Panamanian account processor called Crypto Capital with no contract or written assurances regarding the deposit. Why are we to believe that any legitimate business would do such a thing? Of course not. This was an inside job, and the crooks got almost $1 billion. Anyways, so there is definitely something going on in Bitcoin, but I'm unsure what's driving it, other than the technicals of a Head and Shoulders. And if it is just a Head and Shoulders, then you would expect it to lose about 1,000, and so we could probably go a little bit lower. Right? I mean, the rules for Head and Shoulders, I wouldn't use Head and Shoulders and stuff as signals, but it's still useful stuff to know. Is you look at this, and then the head, and it should go equal to this, or it could go equal to the whole thing. So they're almost to a target, but then they're going to try and hold it, and I think it could probably come down to actually more like 9,500, 9,200. But I'm not going to trade it. I wouldn't be touching it. I'm wondering. I mean, the way that the E-mini is buying, so that's another thing, is the action in ES looks incredibly encouraging to me at the moment, at least. And the treasuries aren't really responding or reacting to it at all. They're actually kind of trying to come back up. Now that might mean that we might get a really good short somewhere. Like right here, it actually appears to be giving us one. Oh, Ace moved his stop up because he was only taking the profit on the one. Okay. It was an all out. I probably should have considered looking for one in E-mini here, and I could have been in there with them. But I don't like the action on the day so far. So I don't know. Plus, I was just yapping when he said it. I didn't even see his entry. I feel dumb. You know what? So if we were to take this, it would have been there. I don't think that it would have gotten filled. Certainly was doing something kind of fishy there, though. Yeah, you can talk or you can trade. You can't do both. Well, I can do both, but sometimes I don't even look. You know. Or rather, you know, there's a lot of time where it's just sitting there. Okay, now there's 1546 have gone into it. But there's stuff on both sides. Oh, yes. The neo-Nazi terrorist who takes credit for murdering 50 people in Christchurch released a manifesto. One of the claims inside of it is that he did very well investing in BitConnect. Yeah, I just want to make you money. Well, if the thing is I don't know. Even if I had sat down and had been like, I think I do want to take a trade here. I'm not so sure that I would have been able to go in on that, because to me, I'm looking for me to take something in ES. I want to see something that tells me that they're really going to be making hard pushes today. So, if we have a good open and it gives us a good trade around, 745, and we see a signal there, then maybe I might take one. So if you're still around then and you see a signal, let me know. Far right became interested in Bitcoin as its members were cut off from more conventional payment methods. The far right became interested in Bitcoins as its members were cut off from more conventional payment channels. Yeah. So this is one of the things that I see today that I find incredibly bizarre. This is one of those things that makes that it's like, you people are trying to gaslight me, aren't you? Because a Bitcoin has always been a liberal thing. All right. When this all started, the financial crisis and all of that, it was the liberals that were saying that we can't trust fiat money anymore, and that we need our own thing. The original series of investors in Bitcoin, the people that were, taken by what is the exchange called again? Mount Gox. Sorry, the people involved in the Mount Gox crash were overwhelmingly liberal. In fact, if you go and you do what is the word? Polls. They do polls on the subreddits. They're still mostly liberal, but they are not as liberal as they were. And so it's been interesting that now Bitcoin has turned into a right-wing thing. Largely because of, I think the thing that really triggered it was when Sargon of Akkad, or whatever his name is, got kicked off Patreon. When they cut him off from Patreon, Subscribe Star came out, was one response to it, but then a bunch of people also started saying we should start doing cryptocurrencies. And at the time, I was like, well, yeah, except for that, this is like the worst time to try and get into cryptocurrencies, right? Yes, Mt. Gox was an exchange based in Shibuya, Tokyo, Japan, launched in July 2010. By 2013 and 2014, was handling over 70% of all Bitcoin, yes. But the thing that you want to read about when was built, it's called Mt. Gox because it was built for users of Magic the Gathering online. Isn't that funny? And then became the largest Bitcoin exchange. But but the thing that you want to look up is the bot. There was a bot. So the way that they were doing it was they had a robot that was basically buying all of the Bitcoin on the exchange and pushing the price up, and it was paying for that Bitcoin with money that didn't exist. The exchange said that it existed, and they were crediting money into your account, but it didn't exist. And if everybody had sold their Bitcoin all at once and tried to withdraw it for dollars, they wouldn't be able to, because there wasn't as many dollars in the exchange as they said there was. That's why I say it was fraud. Mt. Gox pushed price up higher than it was normally go using fraud. And the same thing is happening today. Based on the data that I have, something is doing it today. And the best candidate for it is Tether. And given the New York Attorney General, the accusations that they're making, the things that Bitfinex has actually admitted to, and the fact that they're not printing any Tether anymore, and the price is going down, pretty sure that the only reason Bitcoin is at the price that it is because of fraud. So it's been a year and a half year and 3/4 or something since this thing started. I think it's funny. There's always people come in, they think that they're going to change my mind or whatever, but I'm not the one that makes the data, okay? I just report the numbers and what I see. And what I see is you don't trade it. And I could be wrong. And you know, they did have a good run up here from the 3K to the 10K or whatever. But I'm not going to touch it. Not until the fraud is gone. Hey Gabriel, how's it going? Well, I'm kind of this market is kind of being a little sleepy. Mt. Gox auditor compromised computer to transfer a large number of bitcoins illegally to himself. Yes, that also happened, but that was something else. But it was kind of related. Because they were trying to they were part of the reason that they were committing the fraud was that they were trying to cover up a large loss. Just like Bitfinex did, right? They transferred money to a company in the Bahamas or whatever it was. And then those guys just ran off with the money. And so then they said, well, we need to make that money back, so we're going to trade bitcoins. That's what happened. Rio Tinto says, hello. Oh, hey, thank you very much. You know what? I totally forgot. But on Monday, we added it so that we are now streaming on, oh my gosh. What do we even call it now? Oh my gosh, I feel so stupid now. Mixer, that's right. I'm like trying to get all of the things to go through my head. Yes, Mixer, that's correct. So we're on Mixer now. And Rio Tinto is on Mixer. And he followed us on Mixer. So thank you very much. You are our first follower on Mixer. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Mixer. I maybe need to go and change some things and stuff. But yeah. I don't know. Maybe change the categories and things like that. What's going on here in the 5-year? I'm going to watch. I'm fine, my American friend. Thank you very much. I guess I say I'm fine, but I had a couple of things that I was like super, triggered about earlier that we're talking about. So, yeah. Sorry to interrupt. I was enjoying what you were saying. Continue. So we were talking about Bitcoin, though, right? Yeah, I don't know. Like the thing that's but something that's really interesting to me, though, that I really think. So I keep having people coming in and saying, well, the backed futures are launching. That would be it's not a big deal. Okay. Because there's a smaller exchange than the CME. And why are you going to go and trade there instead of the CME? So it's not important. An ETF being approved, that would be big news. But again, that would maybe be like a good reason to sell it, possibly. Like that's one of those like buy the news, sell the rumors sort of thing, You got the thing that you wanted, now you sell it. When the United States Department of Justice identified Alexander Vink, yes, owner of the BTC exchange, as an alleged key figure in the laundering of Mt. Gox's stolen bitcoins. He's the guy that claims that he's innocent, right? I think he's the guy that's still trying to fight that he's innocent. And then there's the whole thing. Oh man, like everybody that had money in the exchange at that time. Oh, date check. Thank you. Let's go fix that. It is the 21st, not the 20th. Yeah. So basically, if you had money in Mt. Gox at that time, you weren't allowed to pull it out. You weren't allowed to get your bitcoins. So like they were your bitcoins, but because they were in the Mt. Gox exchange, they wouldn't give them to you. Of course, if you had bought and you had transferred the bitcoins to your own wallet, then you would have been safe. And that's why everybody says that you shouldn't store your bitcoins on the exchange, because the exchange could just be insolvent and disappear at any time, right? Well, it was certainly the case with Mt. Gox. Probably these newer ones like Coinbase. Well, the ones that are like US approved. So Coinbase and Gemini, you're probably okay, but I digress. Oh, you mentioned the date check 30 minutes ago. Why am I not seeing some of your comments? I don't know what the deal is. I hope you don't feel ignored. By the way, did you get? I sent you that event on Facebook to see the alpacas. So I'm gonna go see the alpacas on Saturday. If you come and join us, that would be great. The Japanese, yes, the Japanese trustee overseeing bankruptcy said that only 91 million in assets had been tracked down to distribute to claimants, despite Mt. Gox having asserted in the weeks before it went bankrupt that it had more than 500 million in assets. Yeah. So then what happened was they started processing claims, and they said, okay, you had Bitcoin, and then instead of giving you, like, if you owned a whole Bitcoin on Mt. Gox, instead of giving you the Bitcoin, instead what they did was they said, okay, it would have been worth, like $500 or whatever it was at the time. And so they gave you $500. And that was how they did the restitution for all of the people. He says, yep, it would be fun to see the alpacas and your family. Yes, it would be good. How old are your kids, by the way? I don't know. They're probably different age. They're probably a lot older than mine, but Blue Moon, good song for an alpaca farm and a great comedy ploy. This take. No, my wife sent me this this video of an alpaca stuffed toy that like danced. That was super funny. I think I want to get one, and I'll show it to you guys. My American friend, could you point me to a Bitcoin futures course using the order flow? While here in Brazil, only use a graph, and I do not like to use a graph. Thanks for your attention. Utah has a lot of alpaca farms. Why? Well, so because, we have a unique climate where it's relatively dry and high up in the mountains. And so you can, you don't want alpacas, I don't think, want to get too hot necessarily, but they seem to do really well up there in Park City. And like I said, because it's hard to get alpaca stuff from South America and things like that, the government is actually encouraging people to make alpaca farms. Like you can deduct everything and all that. Okay, April's question. So I don't know if there's a course. I actually recorded a video yesterday that is basically like, don't do courses. But what I would look for is the tape. So like I have a tape. If you go, I'll post the link here. It was github.com. Well, actually, let's pull it up here. github.com/TWDSJE Advanced Crypto Order Tape. Here's my tape. So this, you just have to watch the tape. But yeah, you just have to kind of watch the tape, and that one, it will tell you whether they're mostly buying or mostly selling. And you can kind of do it like that. And if you follow my Patreon, then I write notes every day about what I'm seeing in the order flow. You can go and you can look up daily transaction value. That's another thing that you could look up. You can also go and look up, there are Twitter accounts called whale watchers that will show you when large amounts are being transferred around. That's also something that you could look at. But my take is that you can't really trade Bitcoin on any kind of short-term time frame, really. So when I think about using order flow on Bitcoin, I'm kind of thinking more from the perspective of, okay, so now compared to last year, how many transactions are we seeing on the blockchain? And I'm using that kind of information to kind of make my judgments on whether it's okay to get in or not. So, yeah. I should come over here. Oh, it tells me when I go in, it tells me that I'm live. I was wondering on Mixer, because we did have some people come in, if it shows me accurate view counts. It doesn't. See, my restream.io is not telling me how many people are watching today. For some reason, it's not getting that information. And I can see, there's a few people that have come into Mixer, but most of all, it's just not very many people. And yeah, that is interesting too. Whale tail trading, is that what you mean by your suggestion? I don't think that people call it whale tail trading, but yeah, that's basically what it is. When I improve my understanding of English, we'll talk more about it. I'm not really listening and speaking. Yeah, I totally understand, Gabriel. Have you ever checked, or actually you do check the Patreon, don't you? I think you are on the Patreon. So when I post my notes on the Patreon, I'm telling you literally everything that I can see in the cryptocurrency market. So, okay, we're getting another spike, but we tend to see one here before the E-mini open. I think that we could maybe sell it, but I don't want to be taking one right in front of the E-mini. Win says there's 15 watching now. Yeah, I think at one point there was 20, right? It's kind of weird how things go around. I can go back to the video and I can look at like, okay, 719, did I say something that people didn't like? There are some people that don't like the politics, which is okay. It's like, you don't like what I'm saying and you decide to tune out for a while and then maybe you come back another day, that's fine. Or if you never come back, that's fine too. But there are some people that enjoy it, and that's super great. And as long as there's, one person to stream to, I think it is worth doing it, right? Did I miss anything else on there? Nope, I think I got everything. Well, I'm really tempted to short it, though. This, to me, the action in the E-mini looks positive, and it's a Wednesday. I think that there could be a distribution day. I think we could potentially see a good day in the markets. And if we do, I think that the treasuries are probably going to trade down. And just the way that the order flow has been going and everything like that, it seems that that's the way things are going. The only thing there, there was this huge offer that came in and they sold through into a ginormous iceberg and then turned around and went higher. Your channel should organically and grow organically and attract like-minded people who are the billy goats or growth trolls. Sometimes people wander YouTube looking for live streams and conversation. Yeah. Well, I know that for me, it's very common for me to have this feeling of like, I want something more. Like I'm bored and I would really like some new thing or community or group of people that I could engage with. You know what I mean? I have to say, when I stream, it's really fun. I really enjoy talking to you guys so very, very much. And, you get to be in charge and there's cool things about that. Because where else do you get to be in a situation where it's like, you get to have a conversation with people, but you're 100% the focus. That's like, that's not a common thing. It's kind of cool. But then, I always turn around and be like, well, but I also wish that I was a part of other things too. Because then when it's not the morning time anymore, you feel kind of like, You know, there must be something more. Hmm. You want to discuss ideas, theories, and have conversations. That makes sense to me, and that's why so many introverts like this flatland format. I gotcha. Yeah. Well, I try to hold on, because one of the things that comes up from time to time is I talk too much. I do. I really do. Sometimes I need to focus more on the market than I do on chatting. But part of it is like, well, we want to develop the community, and sometimes there's just nothing to do in the market, and it's better to talk and sit on your hands, right? But then there's also that's like, well, but maybe you shouldn't talk about politics or things like that. But I say, no, I think that you should talk about ideas, because where else do we do that? And I could be wrong, but it seems to me that I have a mind that thinks about ideas in a way that you can be a thought leader that is more developed than most people, because most people don't want to talk about ideas. And so from that perspective, I feel like that it is my duty to share ideas with people and to talk about things, especially if it's something that I see, there's a problem or something in, like this thing that I was talking about earlier. Obviously, we're very concerned about, the rise of white. I don't want to call it rise because it's largely overhyped, but there have been people that have done, mass shootings and things based off of white nationalist ideas. But I'm more concerned about this effort to try and label everybody that isn't actually a white nationalist as a white nationalist, because that's like communist. That's how the communists would get people, as they would say, this person, they're actually, a dissenter or some sort, and they wouldn't be, but it was just they wanted to get rid of them, and they used that as the excuse, and then they would rile the mob up against them and disappear them. And you don't want that to happen. It's not okay. And so when I see people running around trying to say that sort of a thing, even though, you really don't want to be sitting there like, this is not a person that I want to defend, but you have to, because they haven't proven what they're saying. And if you just kind of give them a pass on this person, how long is it going to be until they accuse you of something? And you say, well, I'm not a racist. Of course, I don't think anybody on this stream is. And you might be a very liberal person, but don't think for a second that they're not going to be able to come up with some sort of an allegation. And they'll find something that you did or something that you said that's completely innocuous, but that they're going to use as a justification for labeling you a certain way. And then they're going to come for you. Mm-hmm. One says first they came for ... out. That's what they're gonna. That's what's happening. I take it. Now the thing that's interesting, because they're talking about identitarians, and I wouldn't consider myself an identitarian. I do think that definition, as I understand it, at least, that they say that Western culture is under attack and that it should be preserved. That would be something that was like, okay, yeah, that does sound like something that I seem to agree with, but I wouldn't associate myself with it, because that's not how I do explain things, right? I explain it as constitutional principles. That's what I believe in. I believe in constitutional principles and facts. And so from my perspective, it's, in America, people are innocent until proven guilty. So if you're going to accuse somebody of something, you have to prove it. And if you can't prove it, then get out. So they pushed down their 2 ticks quite aggressively. And I don't know if they're going to pick back up or what, but I was kind of thinking maybe I could be short from 16, but when I see action like that, it makes me a little questionable, because they could just completely fall out the bottom here, for sure. For sure. But it could also be a false breakout trap sort of a thing. And I really hate that particular situation. I see it almost every day, but it's one that I avoid. Is a gap like that. When you start seeing the gaps, you could be in a chop zone, and those are the worst places to be in. I am far closer to history than most of you when I read history. History will not be kind to us in a few years. I worry about losing my friends and family who are not paying attention, and they are on the wrong side of history, and I don't understand. Time will tell, but so does pattern recognition. And I don't know. One of the things that I constantly comes to my mind is that, like when I've been watching the documentary about the Vietnam War, and there's a lot of stuff that happened during the Vietnam War that, I do kind of remember reading in history books, but I didn't quite understand the significance of them. And when I look at it now, I'm like, wow, the Vietnam War era was way more crazy than today. In real terms, it was really quite more crazy than today. The most of the stuff that we deal with today is trivial. The president tweeted something, okay, what do you do? But really, there's always been a lot of stuff going on, and the only difference to today is that we have social media, so we have this deep emotional connection with it because it's on our feeds all the time. That seems like that's the thing that's different. And I think that when we look back on this time period, like 100 years from now, I think that what people are going to see is just mass hysteria. They're going to see that people were concerned about a lot of things that they just didn't have to be concerned about. That they had been emotionally triggered by social media, and that it wasn't actually as big of a problem as they thought it was. The draft was bad during the Vietnam War. Yeah, well, there was a draft, and there was just the, you had a case where a president basically didn't seek the renomination and announced it on national television. Can you imagine if Donald Trump got on television and said that he wasn't going to seek the renomination? I mean, come on. Or if Barack Obama had done that, that would have been like the biggest happening ever. But it happened during the Vietnam era. And, the U.S. government wasn't being very honest with us about what was going on in Vietnam, and they denied it. And, that's a bigger happening than any of the supposed conspiracy theories that we're dealing with today. Although I will admit that I should note that this conspiracy theory that that the Donald Trump campaign was targeted by intelligence agencies is certainly very, very disturbing. And if this report really does come out and confirm that, I think that that's something we should take very seriously. It hasn't been proven yet. But it sounds like I would brace myself, so it sounds like it's coming. So they went down 2 ticks, now they're back to 15. Have you read the book Archaeology Forbidden by Michael A. Cremo? I've never heard of that book. You should add that, like after the video, you should add that in the comments so maybe I can look it up. Okay, Bitcoin is zigzagging around a bit with and it's formed a lot of bars, and it requires 100 volume to make a vault bar. So we may actually get a pullback or even a reversal in Bitcoin now. We haven't quite gotten well, you did get one where the close was higher. So it's possible now. Vietnam are interesting. Young for one. I knew John McCain was when he was a prisoner of war, and I had a prisoner of war place. Yeah, that whole thing is interesting too. The whole history about John McCain. Man. Yeah, it sure is. I find it interesting to me that that military veterans and military leadership do not play as significant of a role in our politics today as they used to. You know, it used to be that being a general was like a really great way to become president. And now that like never happens. They're always politicians. When I was assigned to special ops, I worked with the Green Berets. Oh, really? Really? And that's where Green Berets is where Vietnam is where Green Berets was like started, right? They're buying it. Oh, I should look at this. And they sold a bit. So I would really like to buy E-mini, but I don't think I see enough one-sidedness in it for me to really know, for me to really get on board that train, you know? Because the thing is if I really knew that it was only going one direction, then I could probably pick a spot and just hold on to it until they finally go up. But the way that they're ticking right now, you know, I could buy 26, for instance, at the open, and they could come back down here, then they could come up here, and they could do that several times before they decided direction. So I don't think that I can take that one unless... And it's kind of the same thing over here in Treasuries. Like, we've been super tight. And even though we're getting kind of spots, they're kind of like unclear about what direction people are getting, you know, pushed through. So I can't tell if it's which way it's going to go. You see that? Like every time that I get stuff, it's in a zipper. Which means that there's a lot of people making trades there for that reason, for a certain reason, but they're not overextending in one direction or another, and so I'm never actually getting my signal. Or the market imbalance that I try to take advantage of. 1 minute they were stealing my french fries and quoting Blake, and the next minute they could terrify me with their war stories. Yes, Green Berets are teachers. First and foremost, General Downing was quite a character. General Shelton wrote my law school recommendation. Oh, there you go. Yeah, my recollection was that they were like they were created for Vietnam, and they were the tough ones in Vietnam, you know. They were like, okay, we're going to go into the jungle for several weeks to do something, and they were just self-sufficient, and they got the job done, which was, you know, at the time, quite an achievement, because the army had a really hard time with the environment and all that sort of thing. I miss seeing those strong young men get ready for a group run in their tiny black shorts and jacked up arms, and yet so gentle. That's so funny. Man, I remember when I was dating, girls would talk about that sort of thing in terms of, because I would always ask, like, what are the sorts of things that they find attractive, and to me, or the thing that I heard the most frequent was this idea that, like, the guy is big and strong and could probably strangulate and do whatever they wanted to them, but they wouldn't. They never would. They're extremely gentle, particularly with them. And that was the thing that really got them going. I mean, it would have been nice to be to be short 16. But I mean, if I had gotten short 16, let's just say that I had gotten short 16, what would I be doing here? Should I be getting out here at 14.5? I don't know. I'm getting a very, very large imbalance now, or at least a very, very large degree of interest in this particular price. But we are in a zipper at 14.5, so we're caught in a consolidation zone. And so I can't tell if people are overextending on the sell side and we're going to get bumped back up, or if we're going to consolidate and move lower. I think with my biases and everything, that I would prefer to be taking a short still. So then you could say, well, should I short 14.5? Well, am I confident enough in that to short 14.5? And right now, I don't think I am. So it may move. I think I would, if I had to call it, I would say that it's short at 14.5. But I'm not going to take one because I just don't see enough of a thing to give me a good probability or risk reward really on taking this. Jake says I'm waiting for a fake out at this resistance. Yeah, that makes sense, dude. If you're talking about the treasuries, that is. Okay, and Lewis says that he's short at 14 and his target is 10 in the 10-year, huh? See, it's just this like every time that you see a large degree of interest, there's a slightly higher probability that it's going to reverse. Like it's going to move away from that location. 55-60% of the time they reverse, and 40% of the time they continue through. Probabilities are probably different from that because a lot of the time it just goes flat too. But I didn't get a large enough sample size to know what percentage of the time it just goes flat. But it seems to me that when you get into really aimless trading, that just like anything else, the signals kind of tend to be not very reliable. So what I'm looking for in a situation like this is kind of more like, okay, we buy up and we trade 17 half maybe. And then I see a high degree of interest. And then I know, okay, and I can look at the cumulative delta and everything like that to see a lot of people went long and there's a ton of interest that they're gonna flip on their head. Jake says there's my fake out. So it does look like they're gonna reverse here, isn't it? I kind of thought that I said it probably more likely to be a short there, but I'm not confident enough to take it. And it's come back up. If I had taken one like that, I would certainly be stopping out right now, wouldn't I? So you have to read that one as a buy, for sure. But we can only see it now. And I'm just saying when you're in a thing like that, it's kind of hard to tell what it is. But now you can see, okay, they came down, stopped, reversed. Boom. I have to say, on that trade though, the degree to which they moved back up here to 16 seems incredibly fast to me. Wouldn't you say? Given how really grindy this action is, for them to have come up those 3 ticks on almost nothing is kind of really quite odd to me. I guess I shouldn't say odd, but because that sort of thing happens all the time, but that just kind of sticks out to me as not what you would expect to see. The E-mini going to sell here now? It looks like they're really turning. Now they're below the open. And this is exactly where I said, like, that's why I'm not in. General Downing has this majestic, mighty, massive dog, and he would go to the troops when they ran. The dog was ripped and his holistically fed, and then he began to get fat. One day at the officers' club, the chief walked up to General Downing and said, "Sir, your dog has not visited our kitchen lately, so here is his doggy bag." The dog had been visiting the kitchen club and pulling rank. He wore a 4-star ID collar around his neck and everybody was feeding him when he made his border patrol rounds. That's funny. So he was trying to keep the dog in really good shape, but everybody was feeding him and he was getting fat because of that. Man. So here at 16, this would be a spot that we would be interested in again because it was a zipper area and it was like kind of where you would have taken the short before, right? And it is acting balanced, but there's not actual interest in it. Nor has the cumulative delta really moved much at all. So if we were looking for a short again, where is the degree of imbalance for us to try and take it the other direction? I don't see it yet. Doesn't mean that it won't happen. But if it happens, it's probably because somebody's able to just push it with the volume and move the volume, and there's no way that we can predict that. Certainly not in this action. This is really quite like this is the kind of action that you would expect to see in August. Really, really awful slow trading. Which, you know, with the context of everything and all the news that's going around, I wouldn't have expected to see that, but that's what we're getting. We should change our thing down at the bottom. What was the thing? Now they're hitting into 16.5. This headline about Greenland, I think, is the most hilarious thing. You know what? I think that there was like they leaked it, and then all of the people on the subreddits and everything like really liked the idea, and so they pushed it, and then they're just like, but the only reason that anybody liked it was because it was funny. It's not that anybody actually thought that they were going to buy Greenland, right? Mika Fair is watching and hoping for a duck heart. A duck heart. Ew. Where do you get duck hearts from? Ooh, look at that. There's 17. Well, I tell you what, Jake, if you're still long, good call. So they do seem to be bidding up because the E-mini keeps threatening that they're going to move lower. It's unclear yet what the ES is going to do. Probably it's clear to somebody, but to me it's not clear if they're going to buy or sell. They are still holding the open despite a decent amount of selling. You are getting some iceberging at 17 and some profit taking maybe. I'm assuming, you know, all those 24.37 selling into 17, there's probably people that are just like, okay, this is an okay place to get out because they're not sure if they're going to get filled at 17.5. How big of an iceberg are we going to have here at 17, huh? 3,000, okay. Zero Hedge says, this is the worst I've seen it. Quote from recession imminent as RV industry crashes. German climate drive must observe a zero deficit rule, says minister. So here, once again, even though Das Spiegel, the German newspaper, saying now twice that there might be deficit spending in Germany, and the government continues to say no, we're not going to. Donald Trump, so Germany is paying zero interest and is actually being paid to borrow money, while the USA, for stronger and more important credit, is paying interest and just stopped. Quantitative tightening. Strongest dollar in history, very tough on export, no inflation. Where is the Federal Reserve? Well, Mr. President, I'll tell you where they are. They are at the Federal Reserve doing their models in their daily work. And when they have their next meeting where they discuss interest rates, then they will look at the data and they will see if it's appropriate to lower it or not. And given the current data that we have and the market's reaction to the rate decrease that we just had, it appears to me that they're probably safe to decrease interest rates again. I don't know if they can decrease it more than that. That's kind of beyond my understanding of Federal Reserve policy. But if they thought that they had the room to decrease interest rates more than that, then they would do that. But, you know, they are kind of data dependent, and yeah, they're probably always a little bit late too. My ferrets have to have organs in their Frankenprey diet we use to drive ethnic markets to buy fresh organs or to a farmer market. Now I order online. You might ask what they do with the alpaca organs. Raw feeding ferrets need organs and it's good business. Can you eat alpaca? Mine have not had any meat from ostrich or alpaca, but they like frog. I don't know. I've never heard of eating alpaca. Probably not. Because you don't kill the alpaca. You want it for the fur, right? I'm gonna guess that they probably don't taste too good. Because remember that alpacas are kind of like in the camel family. So can you think about eating camel meat? Does that sound very tasty to you? Or like horse meat, for instance. You don't eat horse, right? There's a reason, because it's not really designed for eating. Zero Hedge tweets the address of the Federal Reserve in response to Donald Trump's asking where is the Federal Reserve. That is funny. Interesting. So now that he's yapping, we might have been, him saying that could maybe push us up a little bit, because he's basically pushing for lower rates. That's going to cause people to buy the treasuries. I think we still kind of have to ignore it, though. You did get a good buy there, though, didn't we? Like, I didn't know what to make of that signal, but it ended up being a good buy. Wish I had seen it like, oh, Jake says, no, I'm short on the S&P 500. Oh, okay. So I'm just saying, I wish that I had seen that as a long and taken it. So it would have been a really great trade. Could have taken it at 14.5. Yep. Could take it off at 18.5. 8 ticks. And that said, it does look like they're going to... Nope. So nobody's trading into 17.5, but it's a zippering here. That's not necessarily a get out signal. This is one where it could fall back without it saying anything. Essentially. Oh, here's the existing home sales. July, 5.42 million versus an estimate of 5.39. Month over month percentages 2.5 versus an estimated 2.3. So housing is a little better than expected. Hmm. Biden says RFK and Martin Luther King were assassinated in the late 70s. Oh boy. It was like the early 60s, wasn't it? I don't know. I don't know when he was killed. When was Martin Luther King Jr. assassinated? April 4th, 1968. So it was the late 60s. What are you trading? Well, I'm 10-year treasuries is where I want to take a trade. Maybe it would have taken one in the E-mini, but I don't know what it's doing. I don't know what it's doing. Look at wage growth, and I think there's a trend that may predicate the economy. Perhaps. Well, you got a lot on you, Mini, huh? Well, wait, where did you take a short from? From 28? How are you getting 3%? It was only 2 points. You might be a little over leveraged there, buddy. You do a 20x SPY. Oh, I see. I see. That's interesting. Yeah, Lewis says the FOMC at 11. The meeting minutes, you mean? At 11 Central Time. Yeah. I think that's probably part of why the treasuries have been so tight today. I don't think that any big players are really super interested in taking a big move ahead of the meeting minutes. But something certainly happened there. That one, though, might have just been a random thing. See, I don't know if there was a real buying came in there, or if it just happened to bounce and then it ended up going higher because Donald Trump tweeted about the Federal Reserve, IMF says monetary easing unlikely to weaken a country's currency enough to make lasting improvements to trade balance. IMF repeats that China's external position broadly in line with fundamentals in 2018. Currency intervention, countervailing tariffs, taxing capital inflows likely to be ineffective, negatively impact working of international monetary system. So I think I understand what they're saying, but it's not quite registering to me how that seems like something that should affect us, and it's not quite registering to me how. Oh, we did get a spike here at 18. And I'm getting a big one here in ZB. Isn't it interesting how little the young know of our history? Well, I'll tell you what. It seems to me that reading a book in high school is not a very effective way to teach history. Because the thing is that I took AP US history, for instance, I knew all the dates, I know all the things that happen, but I simply do not understand, or I did not understand the application to things that are happening today the way that I do now when I've, watching the history live and I'm able to go back and and see this source from the past, if that makes sense. So like kids 10 or 20 years from now, and they're reading about Donald Trump. I don't think that they would understand what's going on correctly from a history book. I think that the only way that they would be able to really understand what's going on is to see all of the news headlines and as they progress, and the news conferences of him being up there and the things that he said and the way that he talked, and all of that sort of a thing. I don't know if they're going to film me here. I feel a little uncomfortable about 18 though. The way that's ticking around is a little disconcerting. It probably is a short. But you can see there's actually still some buying pressure coming in here for some reason. Lewis says we did the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag through elementary school and not now. Really? I remember when I was a kid that we would do the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. And during the Bush years, there was a bunch of people that decided that they weren't going to do the Pledge of Allegiance for the flag. This is where that whole thing, like that whole Colin Kaepernick thing, where people come in and they say, well, he wasn't doing it to disrespect the flag or the country or anything. It was just a protest to say that, that black people have been oppressed in the past. Bullshit. Sorry. Bullcrap. I remember when I was in school, then people, they didn't stand for the flag. And why did they not stand for the flag? Because they did not like the United States. And that was all it was, is they said, oh, the president is evil and this is an evil country and we don't like it. I know, because they sit right next to me and you'd ask them why they didn't do it and they would tell you what they thought. And he says, we know what he thinks about the country. And then some guy came in and said, well, this is disrespectful to veterans and you should change it. But come on, like, he knows. He just kind of changed it to kind of placate people. But we all know the reason why he originally started doing it. You're trying to pull the wool over our eyes. That's what I think about that. Anyways, that there's a whole history behind that. And then for people to come in and tell us that, but now it's not an anti-American thing. Bullcrap. You've been doing this thing for my whole life, and now all of a sudden it's different. You think that I don't have a memory or something? If you listen to Colin speak or read anything he wrote on his political beliefs. So I have seen him speak. I would say most of the things that I knew and read about him saying things and all of that happened long before the controversy, in fact. Right? So I remember when he wore socks to the practice that were like, police are pigs socks, which I find incredibly offensive. Well, I don't know what the word offensive is maybe not the right way, because that kind of just makes me, oh, you said this thing, that makes me so mad. But to me, that's an opinion that I strongly disagree with, and I don't think that it's okay to be running around saying or promoting things like that. It's not somebody that I want to support. So that alone was kind of like, I don't like this guy. And then, what he said about his quote about why he does it. He said, I'm not going to stand for a flag for a country that oppresses white people. He's not doing it because it's a protest. He's doing it because he doesn't want to pledge allegiance to the flag, because he doesn't like this country. because he thinks in his mind, in his weird, bizarre world where he's probably spending too much time on social media, he thinks that the United States is a racist country for some reason, which is kind of this thing. So here's something that you really gotta catch to really understand a lot of things that people are saying on the left. But the belief on the left is really that everybody is racist. That's really the truth. And there's some scientific backing to that, right? Like they've done some studies that show that children will show racial preferences as infants. So it certainly couldn't be something that is socialized. But they're more so on the point that, slavery was like written into the Constitution. And so they say that the United States was founded on racist principles. And so because of that, it's basically in the Church of Intersectionality, all Americans are born with the original sin of racism. That's really what it comes down to. And so their position on it, basically, or the reason that that's important, is because we're all born with that original sin, then you have to atone for it by being sufficiently woke. You see how that kind of explains a lot of the things that they think. So it kind of doesn't matter that in terms of like actual racist attitudes, the United States is the least racist place in the world, because we were born with that original sin. We're all racist. And unless you are sufficiently woke, which basically means unless you're a foaming liberal, foaming at the mouth liberal, then you're racist. That's quite ridiculous, but that's the far left. That's their, I'm sure that somebody would probably say that the way that I'm describing it is not fair or accurate, but that's like their explanation of it as I understand it. World Trump News Live. President suggests he is seen as second coming of God. Yes, no, he did say. No, where's the tweet? Let me find the tweet so you can, because that's kind of a really misleading headline, but he did kind of say that. Where is it? Thank you to Wayne Allen Root for the very nice words. President Trump is the greatest president for Jews and Israel in the history of the world, not just in America. He is the best president for Israel in the history of the world, and the Jewish people in Israel love him. He's the king of Israel. They love him like he is the second coming of God, but American Jews don't know him or like him. They don't even know what they're doing or saying anymore. It makes no real sense, but that's okay. If he just keeps doing what he's doing, he's good for all Jews, blacks, gays, everyone, and importantly, he's good for everyone in America who wants a job. So somebody else said that Jews treat him like it's the second coming, and Donald Trump retweeted that, and the headline that we come out is President suggests he is second coming of God. Good grief, people. Understand the psychology of current political campaigns. Roger Stone began the dirty tricks politics at the side of Roy Cohn, Nixon years, and unfortunately, you can point both sides. Yeah, he totally did. Brad Parscale, Roger Stone, dirty tricksers on identity politics. It is really ugly and brings out the worst in people who need to cheer on their team. We are not recognizing the principles of persuasion. Although I don't know if Roger Stone thing was particularly group-based fallacy persuasion type things. Roger Stone is really more in the business of personal destruction, right? He is really good at finding the dirt on somebody. And yeah, if it's legitimate dirt, it's legitimate dirt. What can you say? But he's really good at finding the dirt. I don't want to take this anymore. He's really good at finding the dirt and exploiting it. That's his thing. the muckraking, really. And even a little bit of, I think that I would have to go back and do some research again, but I think that he's been involved in the rat fucking as well. But I don't know of any particular thing that he might have done that was rat fucking. But I digress. He totally did it. He's good at it. But the thing is it's like totally different now, right? Because it used to be that the Republican Party was basically like, we're going to sit and be the most civil, and, you know, those are where a lot of conservatives really didn't like the Republicans, because they said they don't fight, right? That the Democrats, they do everything they possibly can to try and get their way, and then you get these Republicans and they just sit and they let things happen. Well, it's because we need to be kind, and we need to be, you know, not use hyperbole and all of these sorts of things, right? So basically, they would sit and be these angels and then wait for the opposition research to find something nasty about the Democrat and then destroy the Democrat on the basis of character, right? What's he say? Brad Parscale, Roger Stone, dirty trickster, identity politics, really ugly and brings out. No, I already read that one. We're not recognizing the principles of persuasion in marketing because social media is very new and Americans still trust their information sources and their neighbors and their politicians. We use an honor system and trust, but we do not verify. Roger Stone began asking Trump to run for president in the 80s. Trump met a perfect storm of opportunists, and his style is transactional. He's not a supervisor and allows people to follow there. So what's kind of maybe getting into the thing, though, is that what happened was Donald Trump ran for president, and he just says his own thing. And him and Roger Stone had a really great strategy, and they pretty much went through with it. And it worked. Roger Stone knows what he's doing. But something else happened that they did not expect. And that was that on social media, there had been groups of conservatives that had been basically been beaten down by liberals for years. 4 years. And I know this because I was one of them. I remember posting on Dig, and you would post a comment and you'd get downvoted to oblivion, and it didn't matter what the facts were. If it was inconvenient to what the liberal talking points of the day were, they were going to just destroy you. And so there was groups of people that had basically decided, well, the liberals basically have a network of people to try and push stuff on social media. We should too. And there was one such group, was called the Dig Patriots, and they would pass links and they were trying to push stuff on Dig, which, is against the terms of service, but the liberals were doing it too. So that was exposed. And then Dig died, essentially. I began with the Tea Party. Were you in the Tea Party? No, not really. I liked the whole rant that Rick Santelli gave, but then when I was in local politics, I was always opposed to the Tea Party people. That's the thing. I was always the guy that was too moderate, because I sat down and I said, no, the things that you guys are saying are crazy. You want things like the big one that always drives me crazy is that they would want to abolish the Federal Reserve. That's a dumb idea. That's only proposed by people that don't know what they're talking about. But I digress. Anyways, so then Dig died and Reddit became the thing. And when Reddit became the thing, they introduced subreddits, and that was a big deal. I don't think people realize how big of a deal it was, because in all other social media, you have no real control over your feed, right? Like what I see on Twitter, I can follow people, but like the order that they show them to me is like doesn't really make sense, and I'm more likely to see some people's posts because of some weird algorithm they have no control over. But on Reddit, I can just only subscribe to subreddits that show me things that I'm interested in. And there's still an algorithm behind it, but I have a high degree of control over what I'm seeing. And you can create a forum that is only specifically about one thing, and I can moderate it in any way that I want. And that allowed them to go in and create a forum where they said, okay, this forum is going to be about Donald Trump, and it's only Donald Trump. And if you don't support Donald Trump and you're here to argue, we're just going to ban you. Because anytime that any conservatives tried to create something, what happened was there was so many liberal people that it just didn't work, because you got overwhelmed and drowned out and buried by the liberal people. But now, all of a sudden, you could actually have a true right-wing forum on the internet. And so those guys got together and they said, well, we're going to do the things. So what they did was they took every little trick that they had learned from liberals on social media, the way that they argue, the way that they manipulate the website, all of these things. They dialed it up to 11, and then they went full bore and pushed Donald Trump. And that's what happened. And so when you look at the dirty tricks that the Republicans play now, it is essentially use all of the tactics that liberals have used on us in the past against them. So most of what they're doing is like probably the most recognizable one is playing devil's advocate. So they will find something that liberals believe that is kind of dumb, and they will try and hold liberals to that particular standard, even though it's not realistic, to try and demonstrate how ridiculous the idea is. So they will go and they will attack somebody on Twitter for saying something that's racist, even though they're not deserving of it, or whatever the deal is. But they're doing that because in the past, conservatives have been held to that kind of standard. And so now they have a chance to do it to a liberal. They're going to do it back, even though they don't really believe in that particular thing. And they do it because it's effective. And so now what's happening, really? The reason why I think that we're having so much trouble with it, liberals have been using these kinds of tactics for years, probably even decades, to manipulate the public. And they never taught people how to recognize or deal with these sorts of things because only liberals were doing it, not conservatives. Now that everybody is doing it, now it's a problem and we have to address it. See? And that's why it's a problem, because you have all of these people that quite frankly were conditioned to react to these kinds of tactics because it worked really well. So they set things up so that people were even more susceptible to it. That's why you got this trouble. Most division began with foreign actors trying to divide us and create chaos. Now, that came much later. Several months later, and then the Russians basically took what the conservatives had already built and tried to amplify that particular side of it, because that was the side that was most anti-establishment and would create the most chaos in the system. Watch perfectly nice people get mean and nasty and turn on each other, and they will still not listen to me about bots and trolls and hackers. Yeah, totally. Yeah, but because they're following a strategy that's been proven effective for them in the past. There is no I hate him, so destroy him. It's just people sharing memes and getting riled up because that is their intent. So chaos and division is all in the intel reports, Mueller reports, news reports. Before everybody was winning, people are simply catching up the games, but too slowly. Well, I mean, this is the thing, is that we talk about the Russians. They were already doing this stuff before the Russians came along. And when you look at the actual things that the Russians did, that the troll farm that the Mueller report talks about, pretty silly, frankly. Like the ads that they put on are like, who even pays attention to that? Stupid people, I'll tell you that too. the effect that the Russians probably actually had on the end election was probably very minimal. Probably the only thing that really made a difference was the leak of John Podesta's emails, and then the reopening of the case, which was linked by Jason Chaffetz. So those probably had far more effect, canceled out, overwhelmed anything that the Russians did. Just from my own observation, being highly engaged and close to a lot of this kind of action and just watching it, because like the thing is like Russians did put stuff on. So I haven't read the whole Mueller report, but I have read the stuff about the social media, and I've read a lot about it, especially when they were taking those people to court, right? Because remember, they took those people to court, and then the people actually fought in court. I'm under psyops, and I have Superman comic books dropped over to South America to prove it. There you go. Sure. But yeah, I totally read them. That's what I'm saying. Like, the Russians did things, but the things that the Russians did were dumb. And unless of course the Russians were responsible for getting Podesta's emails. That's the only one, in my opinion, that really matters. Because the Podesta emails were the thing that were the most damaging. They were the most damaging. The Republicans paid for the dossier first, yes. And also the investigation began before Steele. Yes. So my understanding is that the investigation started really as, well, we're still getting more information about that. That's what this whole Inspector General report is supposed to be about, right? Because they're saying that it really started as a intelligence campaign against George Papadopoulos, and George Papadopoulos basically says that he was basically targeted for no reason to try and convince him to be a foreign agent of some sort, and he didn't actually do anything wrong, and that was, then they used that as a justification for greater and greater surveillance. So they basically created their own reason for investigation and stuff. And then the whole Steele thing came in, and they used that to get warrants, which is unproven, but that's only unproven because we can't see that information. And if you could see it, if you were a congressman, you could read it, then you could prove if that was true or not. And one congressman says it is, and one congressman says it isn't. And the reason Mueller said, "I now pronounce you not," is because everyone was rather incompetent. Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is the whole question was the Donald Trump campaign cooperating in a quid quo pro manner with Russians? And the answer is that we see absolutely no evidence that that's actually happening, right? So everything else is just kind of like a related subject, kind of ancillary to the actual question. Like, that's why the whole thing ended up getting ignored, right? If they had come out and they had said, we believe that Donald Trump had a quid quo pro arrangement with the Russians to cooperate with information. So the Russians said, we're going to drop some stolen information that we have, and you will know when it's coming so that you can prepare and set the stage for it. And in return, you'll give us stuff when you get in office. Never happened. At least there's no proof that happened, right? So that was the reason that it started. What's going on? E-mini pushing down, maybe stopping out, caused a little bit of panic there in the treasuries. Are they going to come back down? Do you talk about markets or just politics? Well, they're kind of intrinsically intertwined, aren't they? We're just talking about this particular thing because that's what Wynn wanted to talk about. I'm wondering, was there a reason for that? Oh, there was the oil report. Maybe that's what it was. Let's see, what was oil? What's oil doing? Oh, I need to roll over. Hold on. Good downtick. On the oil report, there was a big sell and then they recovered it. So it could be the oil. Anyways, I would argue, personally, on the point of the declare you not guilty, I wouldn't say they was because they were incompetent. I think it's because the truth is that Mueller doesn't like Donald Trump and wanted to do everything that he could to hurt the Trump administration. And unfortunately, as much as he tried, he couldn't find something that was truly damning enough that he could really push to try and prosecute him, which, given the Department of Justice setup and everything like that would be, super crazy. And so that was the most damaging thing that he could do, was to say, well, he's not, we declare you not innocent, was like the best that he could do. That's what I think happened. Otherwise, I mean, the thing is that one guide that I've learned that I've found incredibly important or incredibly useful is people always use the strongest argument that they have, right? So if they go back to, for instance, if they go to attacking you personally instead of attacking the issue, then you know that they don't have any more argument and you've won, right? That's why if you say something and then people start attacking you personally on Twitter, it's a really good indication that that person is suffering from cognitive dissonance. They can't prove you wrong. I mean, it still looks good, but they're not taking it. They're not holding a bid in 19 either. There's actually quite a bit being absorbed at 19 on the offer, in fact. But see, nothing's hitting 18.5. Okay, there was 8. I did not mean to imply incompetent Trump is wonderful, first and foremost transactional. That's funny. Yeah, no. I'm just saying. Like, this is, again, like, things will always come back to markets eventually, right? I mean, the day that the whole, like, when he fired Comey, I think was the day, the markets totally reacted to that. That mattered. And for that whole thing to have fizzled out mattered. And the impact that it's going to have on the election matters to the markets, And so the more that we understand about that and how to read the thing, because the thing that I think I can provide that not a whole lot of other people can, is that I'm way more involved in the dredges of the social media part of it than most people are, right? So I can go back and I can tell you all of the things like, okay, the Donald subreddit, they totally manipulated that to the top. I mean, it was literally like a dozen guys that got together and said, okay, we're going to make this subreddit and we're going to push it. That's literally how it started. It was totally manipulated. Not Russians, just people on the far right, right? And it's something that not a lot of people really know the history behind, but ended up having a significant impact on the election. Donald Trump tweeted a meme yesterday about Greenland that came from that subreddit. He probably found it there. Okay, so they're still selling. And there's a bid there. Mm, I guess. I guess. They might come back a little bit. I might have been able to get a better price on that, but it's actually told me short a couple of times here and reinforced it, but it's just, I don't think that it's going to work as long as the E-mini is selling, and I don't know if it's going to sell or what. Sure, 19.5. They hit. Let's just watch it for a little bit. Oh, it's 8:36, so you know what? That's like time for me to get out anyways. Well, kind of sucks. I mean, I could have taken a long, right? I could have taken that long and I chose not to. But that was really the only opportunity they gave us. It would have been a really amazing opportunity, but I didn't get it. So, think of the number of far right nationalists. There's 100K. Where do you get that number from? So, one of the things that is really annoying is that they're um, the, like the only numbers that we get from on this sort of thing is from the Southern Poverty Law Center, and they're just not an accurate source for information. So they'll go out and they'll say there are X thousand hate groups in the United States, and what they're counting as a hate group is like if one guy goes and makes a Facebook page, that's a hate group that they've found. So like any kind of estimate on the number of white nationalists that there are in the country is I don't think is going to be accurate. We know that it's an extremely small percentage of the population. It's also probably extremely small compared to the number of Antifa activists that there are out there, for instance. But, yeah. Anyways, Jake asks, why do you leave so early? Because I have a day job. Otherwise, I would stay at least until 9:30. But I'll tell you what, in the Treasury market, after that, I mean, it's 9:30 my time, but 11:30, 12 o'clock Eastern time, it's not worth trading the Treasuries unless there's a piece of news that's going to be important. So, like today, we get the FOMC meeting minutes. That's going to move this market. That would be worth sticking around for, and I wish that I could stick around for it, but you know, I got a day job. I'm just kind of looking at this again and saying, did I really do the right thing? I did the right thing. I probably should have gotten out of this one when it came back down. So that could have been a zero, could have gotten out on that one and break even. But I don't think I did anything wrong. Do you mainly trade the Treasuries? Yes. I've tried the E-mini, but I don't really have a reliable edge in the E-mini yet. So there are times when I will take one when I really, really know what it's doing. But it's like today. I thought, oh, maybe they're going to buy it up, but then it looks like they could go either way, and they're still churning. I mean, it looks negative at the moment, but it's still churning. I don't actually know if it's going to go down further or if it's going to turn or what. Or even where the spots are. I mean, that's my real problem in the E-mini is I can't pick a spot. Here in Treasuries, did you see that? I took a short. It stayed favorable for quite some time. And then when there was a stop run against me, it still came back into my price and went bid. So it gave me plenty of opportunity to get because I just know the right spot. But I don't have that in E-mini, unfortunately. Have a plan if you were in public for where you and your family will meet up if trouble begins. Are those jigsaw tools you're using? Yes. Well, so these charts right here are NinjaTrader 8 charts. I have the jigsaw charts behind them. I love the jigsaw charts and all, but I don't know. I haven't necessarily found those histograms to be particularly useful. I guess it does say that you should be buying all day. That's funny. Interesting. I guess maybe that would have been useful, perhaps. But based on the overnight action, I was favoring a sell. And, it kind of gave me some signals both ways. Didn't take one, took another one, lost 2 ticks. Oh, well. It's a 50-50 sort of a thing. But anyways, these histograms that I have right here is something that I wrote myself. And, there's a couple of, it's not like something incredibly difficult, but maybe I'll put it up at some point. But for now, I just kind of want to keep it to myself. But the gist of it is that it's a measure of level 2 activity. So what I'm essentially doing is I'm looking for places where the market has become overextended, and there's a lot of interest in rotation, and those tend to be reversals. And so I know if I can take a spot there, and if they're able to get it a tick or two, that people will start stopping out, and I can get at least 3 ticks from it. And then they tend to be the start of new trends, and so then you can get like 4 to 8, That's why, it came up here. Just like as an example, it would give me some spots right here, but this is just all in noise. So are people really overextended? It's unclear. Here in this spot, it was kind of the same thing. Like you knew that a lot of people had sold here from this, but the cumulative delta through here was flat. So I wasn't sure, but it was certainly a candidate. Also, it had formed a zipper first, so I wasn't totally sure. But this did end up being a buy. So there you say, okay, here they're all placing orders in there. They're trying to do something now. And it's because they're all short and they want to get long, right? And so then they did it. It came up. And then at that point, remember we were saying, I'm not sure if there was a reason for why they moved. And it might have just been because of Donald Trump tweeting things about the Federal Reserve, maybe. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that happened. And then it gave me another one here. They're all quite long, and there's interest in it. And then news came out and ruined the trade, basically. So that's the way that I do it. That's the rundown. Birds are asking for attention. They mustn't know the routine. Do your children? Yeah, I think they had a good day. Well, so the thing is they weren't on when I come home. They went to their dad's. So I haven't gotten a chance to speak to them yet. I'll see them tonight because grandma's come over. And one little thought to close and poke. If a male retired AF NCO who worked in special ops and had lived through told you to look at, would you be listen to him teasing you now, but he did very well and have Tommy new and interesting things to consider and ponder. Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds to me like your main point is that there are people out there involved in disinformation campaigns, right? And that is true. The thing that I the thing that I don't like hearing, I guess. I think that's a fair way of saying it, but like every time that I hear it, I'm like, well, no. Is the idea that that's the only reason that Donald Trump is president. Because you can't know that. And it appears to me that at least that one particular disinformation campaign was not very effective. But there's stuff going on right now like this, and that's another thing that always really scares me is everybody's so interested in the Russians, but I've never thought the Russian propaganda was terribly convincing. Like, most of what they do is just try and confuse and make noise, is most of what they do, right? But the Chinese kind of disturbs me. Because because people aren't really looking at it and taking it seriously. And it seems like that Chinese disinformation is going to play just as big of a role, if not a bigger role, in 2020 than Russians did in 2016. But also, like, it looks like one of my friend's accounts got taken over by the Chinese. Like, the whole thing is crazy. Boom, 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 where there's never only one reason for anything. Yeah, that's true. It's totally true that they tried to interfere in the election. It did. It happened. There was a whole bunch of other stuff that was about, but ethnocentrism is the reason that Rome fell. Maybe, I don't know. I think the whole ethno thing, is just like the whole thing with identitarians is like, okay, so to me, it kind of bothers me when I hear people say things like that being white is bad, because I hear that sort of a thing, like all white people are racist. Like, that's like reverse racism, or maybe it's just racism, but I don't think that we should be saying that. But then to turn around and say, okay, the way that we fight against this particular thing is, that there should be some sort of white pride movement sort of a thing, not a white supremacy thing, but just, I'm really glad that and it's just, I think that's so stupid, right? How do you address these sorts of things in Seth's ideology? Constitutional principles and truth. Okay. Here are some things that people have said that are incorrect. Let's correct those things. Here's something that somebody is proposing that is against the Constitution. For instance, Sarah Dye, they claim that she is a white supremacist. She says that she's not. They haven't proven it. Okay? You are innocent until proven guilty, so they have to prove that she actually holds those beliefs until they do that. And then, if you're protesting and causing a disturbance, that's against the law. So then they can take care of that. But they can't go in and say, you're a white supremacist. You're not allowed to be at the farmer's market anymore. Why? Because that would be a violation of equal protection under the law. So we use constitutional principles, right? One of the constitutional principles is freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is under attack in Western countries today. No doubt about it. And it's not, why would anybody try to turn it into an ethnic, cultural sort of a thing? Like, do you believe in the Constitution or don't you? It's that simple. If you believe in the Constitution, then we should have freedom of speech. And that's it. And if you're in Europe, well, I don't know. I don't know how to help you because I'm not in Europe. I would just say, hey, the United States, they have a constitution and freedom of speech, and it works really, really well for them, and I think that we should do it too. That's the argument that I would make. But whatever. They want to go down some other really bizarre, series of logic to try and get their issue across. They're more than welcome. I don't think that it's going to get them very far. That's why I say this Sarah Dye person just doesn't seem incredibly bright to me. So it's not like it's somebody that I want to defend, and she may well actually be a white supremacist. I mean, I can't read her mind, right? But I can't go and call her that until I've proven it. So how much higher? I took that at 19. And we're at 20.5 now. So they did go one tick higher than what was there. And they haven't given another signal. Although the 30-year is possibly giving us some signs. So we'll see. It seems to me that this signal that I have still has some of the same problems in really, really, really slow markets. But what I'm noticing is that I'm coming out break even or just a few ticks down because it's so much easier for me to see when it's not really in a good spot. So that's good. So that does mean that it's still solving some of our problems, because one of the things that we might have done in the past is that we would have taken like 8 trades throughout all of this and gotten nowhere. Adam Smith began our economic policy ideas, but again, we have 2 ideologies to debate. Yeah, Adam Smith is The Wealth of Nations is probably the best book you could possibly read to try and understand the modern economic system, isn't it? Anyways, well, I think we're all politicked out for the week now, huh? I had a bunch. To be honest, I argued with that guy for like 20 replies, and he's still responding to me. I don't know if, unless he says something interesting, I'm probably gonna stop talking to him now. But good grief, it was starting to really irk me, because it's just like they can come in for anybody with the things that they're saying, and I don't want a world like that. I don't, where it doesn't matter if you're a liberal, then you can be called a communist. You want a world where all I have to do is accuse you of being a communist because your idea was maybe a little bit too liberal, and then I can completely destroy your life, It's not okay. You have to prove things like that. Otherwise, it's McCarthyism. It bothers me. But now that I've been able to talk to you guys about it, I feel a little bit better about it, and I'm not so as agitated. But now I'm going to have to go and ask the Chinese about my friend. Like, has their account been taken over? Because it seems like their account has been taken over. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay profitable, friends.